It's December 2003. The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King lands in theaters, and the world loses its mind. Critics love it, audiences love it, and the film walks away with 11 Oscars, closing one of the greatest fantasy trilogies ever made. But then, the studio world started thinking, if this kind of magic makes money once, why not try again?
Then let's just have his head and be done with it.
Warner Brothers decided to revisit Middle-earth. And that decision is where things start to go off the rails.
Just built an army and then, no.
Instead of continuing the legacy of those films, the studio tried something very different. They took one of Tolkien's simplest, warmest adventure stories and stretched it into a massive 3-film production. And somewhere in that process, the heart of The Hobbit slipped through the cracks.
I am looking to hire a burglar.
What should have been a focused tale about Bilbo's courage and curiosity turned into a trilogy built to match the scale and the profits of The Lord of the Rings. Today, we're looking at how that happened and why it became one of cinema's biggest letdowns for a lot of fans.
Don't tell the elf.
Here's where the trouble began. You see, The Hobbit is a compact, episodic bedtime story. It reads like a sequence of charming incidents. It doesn't have the intense war arc that The Lord of the Rings does. So when the studio decided to make it 3 films, someone had to invent content to reach trilogy runtime. And how did this affect the trilogy, you might ask? That meant padding.
Enough. I am Gandalf.
Long chases, new villains, new political subplots, and crammed-in connections to the later saga. But adding extra stuff itself isn't always bad. You can expand a world responsibly by going deeper into character or theme. The original Star Wars trilogy does this well. It spends time on moments that enrich the story, like Luke's training with Yoda. These don't push the plot forward much, but they deepen the characters and the stakes. What the Hobbit films did instead was widen the set pieces and add breadth without the depth. New fights, extra villains, romance beats for the camera, and subplots that exist only to stretch time. The inevitable result? A thin center made heavier by filler. Bilbo is the emotional engine of the story. In the book, the plot is basically Bilbo leaves home, faces challenges, gets scared, grows, and comes back changed. In Film 1, Martin Freeman captures that small, funny, brave heart perfectly. The cave scene with Gollum is pure cinematic intimacy. It proves that the film can land small, human moments. This is a good place to mention that I believe Martin Freeman portrays Bilbo Baggins perfectly, so I'm not blaming him for this. But here comes the problem. By the end of movie 1, Bilbo's arc is essentially complete. He's brave, he's cunning, he's changed. Instead of continuing this arc into the sequels with deeper interior conflict, the later films demote him to witness as the plot explodes outward. That's where it all falls apart. Suddenly, The Hobbit isn't about the Hobbit anymore.
Which is, of course, ridiculous.
Then there's the dwarves. 13 characters who travel with us for almost 9 hours, yet most of them might as well be strangers.
Do we know each other?
No.
You'd think with that much screen time we'd remember at least a few names, or care when they're in danger. But outside of Thorin, Balin, and maybe Keeley, the rest barely register. They don't have arcs, they don't have standout moments, and half the time they don't even have lines. It's not that every character needs a deep backstory. They just need a spark of personality, something to make us connect. Instead, they blur together into background noise. So when someone dies or gets their big emotional moment, it doesn't really hit. We never got to know them. Then there's the studio's extra additions, Tauriel, the romance subplot, and Legolas suddenly showing up. These choices make it clear that the filmmakers were going for familiar faces and easy marketing, not stronger storytelling. Tauriel could have been a great addition, a chance to bring a new kind of character and perspective into Middle-earth. But instead, she's mostly used as part of a love triangle that doesn't add much to the plot, and Legolas, who doesn't even appear in the original book, is really just there for action scenes and nostalgia. It's less about what fits the story and more about what looks good on a poster. Tolkien wrote The Hobbit as a bedtime story for his children, playful, personal, and often a little silly. The films keep flipping between that lighthearted tone and full-blown epic darkness, necromancer hunts, shadow armies, and world-ending speeches. That tonal whiplash throws the whole thing off balance. You're laughing at a goblin song one moment, and the next you're supposed to fear the end of the world. The soundtrack isn't innocent either. Reusing Lord of the Rings themes is tempting. It sells emotional recall. But when you play the Ring Wraith leitmotif during a dwarf leadership monologue, the music does the emotional heavy lifting, not the script. Composer references should underscore the scene's truth, not patch a missing narrative. But it's not all misfires. Misty Mountains, sung by the Dwarf cast, is genuinely one of my favorite pieces in the entire Tolkien soundtrack library. It shows how good the music could be when it leaned into the story itself instead of borrowed nostalgia. Part of what made The Lord of the Rings so special was how real it all felt. The armor, the sets, the makeup, you could almost feel the mud and weight of the world. By the time The Hobbit was made, that grounded look was mostly gone. The production leaned heavily on green screens and digital effects and the different shows. The world looked smoother, flatter, and less believable. Even the actors felt it. Ian McKellen famously broke down on set because he was surrounded by green walls instead of real props or people. It's not about technology being bad. It's about losing that physical texture that made Middle-earth feel alive. Smaug's scenes show why the effects in The Hobbit feel inconsistent. In close-up scenes, the animators used Benedict Cumberbatch's amazing voice and performance as a guide. And the dragon feels expressive and full of personality. Most actors would probably cringe at crawling around the floor pretending to be a dragon, but he commits completely. And yet, when the studio cuts to fully CGI shots without his performance as a guide, all that energy drains away. Jumping between these approaches keeps yanking you out of the story. It's a perfect example of brilliant acting getting buried under production choices, and it makes you wish the film had trusted him more. There's a cosmetic problem too. The soft focus, glow, and aging smoothing applied to returning actors. It's a weird attempt at visual nostalgia. Like airbrushing wrinkles out of memory, it makes faces look less lived in, which is the opposite of what this story needs. A big issue with the action in The Hobbit is that it keeps trying to top itself. Scenes don't build tension, they inflate it. Take the barrel escape as an example. In the book, it's a clever, risky plan that works because it's grounded and messy. In the film, it turns into a non-stop stunt reel. Every moment has to be bigger than the last. Bouncing barrels, perfect shots, physics-defying choreography. And when everything is spectacular, nothing feels dangerous. Instead of worrying about the characters, we just wait to see what wild trick comes next. Then, there's the problem with everyone needing a heroic moment. Every character pulls off a slow-motion leap, a last-second save, or a flashy attack. It might look impressive, but it kills tension. Most of these characters barely have personalities or arcs, so when they're in danger, we don't actually care. And when the story keeps saving everyone, no one ever feels truly at risk. The battle ends up like a video game, flashy and addictive, but emotionally hollow. The action scenes in Lord of the Rings carried real stakes. When the Fellowship faces orcs in Moria or the Battle of Helm's Deep unfolds, every move feels precarious because the characters are vulnerable. A single misstep could cost lives. You worry for Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli because they aren't invincible, and the danger shapes your emotional investment. In The Hobbit, by contrast, the dwarves' escape from the goblin caves turns into a chaotic, over-the-top spectacle. They tumble through tunnels, swing on ropes, and dodge collapsing bridges. But no matter what happens, they're never in real danger. The tension is gone. The audience is dazzled, but you don't actually fear, hope, or grieve for the characters the way Tolkien made you in the original trilogy. In the book, the Battle of the Five Armies is brief, tragic, and almost pointless. Tolkien uses it to show the futility and cost of war. The film stretches it into 2 hours of CGI spectacle, filling the screen with made-up rivalries, flashy last-second saves, and endless heroic moments for characters we barely know. By turning a story meant to feel bitter and reflective into non-stop chaos, the movie loses the irony and moral weight Tolkien built into the original skirmish. But even with all that, the films do have moments where everything clicks. For when the films slow down and trust their characters, they shine. Bilbo and Gollum, just two actors in a shadowed cave, deliver moments that actually feel tense and alive. The dwarves' fight choreography and their mountain song scenes show personality and inventiveness on a small scale. Here's what would make the biggest difference. Compress the story into one strong film or two, letting Bilbo's doubts and choices drive the journey from start to finish. Use characters like Legolas and Sauron sparingly, only when they reveal something essential about Bilbo. Give Tauriel a clear, independent objective rather than tying her to a romance. Bring back practical props and sets where they matter. Texture sells believability, and let the music serve the scene instead of trying to manufacture emotion. Some of the best shots in the trilogy already show the way. A quiet, clever Bilbo navigating the goblin tunnels. The dwarves singing a short, honest song. A single close-up that trusts the actor to carry the tension. These aren't flashy set pieces. They're moments earned through character, craft, and careful attention. In the end, I blame those who wanted to milk this for as much money as possible. Hope I didn't come off as too negative, although I think I did. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like and subscribe. I spent a lot of time digging into this one. And drop a comment, which Hobbit moment do you wish had been handled differently? See you in the next.